Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor. And this is a special episode because it's going to be a pretty relaxed episode, I would say. It's, just going to be uh, Trevor and I going back and forth, but also we want to hear from you guys in the chat as well. Let us know, say hi first, too. Let us know you're watching so we can interact with you guys. But, anyways, I got Trevor from Tridentine Brewing here today. Uh, you were going to be on an episode previously, the election. You've been on one, but you were going to be on a second one for the election show, but that ended up going so late that it ended up being continuing on a different show. So you ended up being on that show.
Not only was it a disappointment that I was not on Plotlines for the election, but the results were disappointing. So overall, disappointing all around. But
You were disappointed you weren't on Plotlines.
yeah, that's right. I was disappointed I didn't make it in time.
Oh,
So
yeah, I
not a
was
great night
disappointed
all
that I was
around.
tired at that point. That's one of the reasons why I sent everyone over to the other show as well, is because I was pretty tired. It was a long night, and like you said, it was a disappointing night. So there's not, unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. But yeah,
Yeah.
so we're here to talk about the year in review as well as the future of plot lines. And I thought, you're one of my big supporters, you're a big supporter of the podcast, that I thought you'd be the perfect guest to have on to discuss it. So, do you want to tell us a little bit just how you found plot lines? How tell that story?
Yeah, absolutely, Connor. So I think I end up finding out about Plotlines just because you and I had interacted on Twitter, and I found out that we were actually parishioners at the same parish, so went to the same FSSP parish. It might be two different churches, the same priest, so it's kind of a weird setup.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I just started looking into your work, and I was certainly impressed. Well, for a few things. First, the breadth of guests and the caliber of guests that you're able to have on plot lines, and of course the subject matter that you're able to cover. I think is certainly unique, and what you're able to cover, certainly from a Catholic perspective, Orthodox Catholic perspective, a wide range of relevant topics, whether it's history, maybe a little bit of politics. That's not really it so much. It's more about um, storylines for certain things, the church. So I found it really interesting, and I started listening to the podcast, and of course you had me on the first time, which I think was several months ago at this point, maybe
Yeah.
6 months ago. But yeah, I've been listening, ever since. So you're on my normal podcast rotation, and I think it seems like certainly this year you continue to, not just because it's me, not just because I was on the podcast, but you're able to get other people on the podcast who are just like really interesting people, whether it's inside Catholic circles or whatnot, but even outside of that. Yeah, so kudos to you, because that always makes it interesting. No one's tuning in to hear Trevor, but they might tune in to hear Charles Coulomb, Taylor Marshall. I mean, the list goes
Yeah.
on. I mean, it's not
And
just those two.
I'm not sure anyone's tuning in to hear me either, to be honest. I mean, some people might, like, like, I would say there's like maybe within 100 at this point, who maybe tune in to like listen to me, because there are, I do have people that listen to episodes that are just me. But people definitely are tuning in to usually listen to the guest, but that's normal, especially when you're the podcast host. You can eventually, or like I would say eventually, maybe people will want to tune in just to listen to me or something like that. But there's a lot of uh, it takes time and it takes practice and it takes getting better at this. And it was funny. I looked back at some of, like, I tried to look it back as far as I could go on Taylor Marshall's YouTube channel, and I just thought about it. Like, I was thinking about like his first couple episodes, or at least that are available. I don't know if they're that far off from my ability, right? Like a year ago. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yes.
So like, I think it took him a while too. I mean, it took him 8 years to get where he is today on YouTube and stuff like that. So I think that's interesting. Also, hi, prepping for heaven. Uh,
Hello. Thanks for joining us.
yep, we're
Yeah, and
happy to have you here.
I mean, I've listened to your standalone episodes too. So I'd say that there are
Aw,
people that listen to your, it's just you and you don't
your
have a
people.
guest. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, I agree. Sometimes, and you're well into this at this point in regards to, your podcast. But certainly for, I think, every podcast that's out there, yeah, it's always interesting going back and watching the initial episodes and seeing how someone's grown over the years, have grown as a host, the initial content. So, I mean, I can certainly, tell as well. I mean, of course, I've been listening just this year to you,
Hmm.
but certainly I could tell that there's that progression there, that comfort level, growing as a host, as you say.
That's another reason why you're perfect for this. Is you basically started in it at the beginning of the year. I mean,
Yes.
so like you kind of, in some ways, you sum up my year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. So I've got pretty much the whole year, like you said, of
Hmm.
listening.
I don't know if you know this, but it's, I think this is my fourth or fifth year podcasting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have like I I can't remember what year exactly it was, but I have at least 2 years of non-video podcasts on just podcast apps.
Okay.
So if you go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, you can find all that, and it's just me for the most part. Though I think I did interview a few people, like, but they were just, they're not prominent people that I interviewed previously. Though I guess I did upload. There was a Charles episode that I had done before I did video that I
Hmm.
re-uploaded onto I think it was called Monarchy and Christendom. I think that was, if you've ever watched that episode, there's no video to it,
Okay.
but it and I don't remember if it's a good one. That's one thing, is like sometimes I forget like what happened in these ones. I don't know. It's been so long. It's I don't remember what I said. It's hard. I mean, isn't it hard to remember what you said yesterday, let alone what you said 2-3 years ago?
That's right. Yeah. It's even the very limited number of podcasts that I've been on, it's very hard for me to track down and think, even though my at least the story about Tridentine, everything else seems to stay the same. And there's variations between all the podcasts, but it's like I don't really know what I said on each one specifically. I might have some idea. But yeah, I can imagine like if I was podcasting and I had years worth of things that I was, topics and whatnot that I was talking about, yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you, oh yeah, podcast number 171, I was talking about this. Like, yeah.
You mean to say that the story of how Tridentine Brewing came to be doesn't change?
Well, yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Like there might be a little bit of variation how I say it, but when you can give it on a elevator pitch almost, like 30 seconds, yeah, it doesn't change too much.
I, uh, I'm I'm young, and this is still and
Yeah.
this is difficult. So it's not just either I'm aging faster than I should be, or it's harder for even the young people to remember these days. I don't think our skills of memory are very, I don't know, very like haven't grown or been taken care of, or what's the word? Um,
They haven't been honed. They haven't been,
yeah, they haven't been
sharpened.
honed, trained. So
Yes.
it's harder to. I think the younger people are, it's hard to remember things because they just we were never taught how to do that. So
Yeah, I agree. Although you could make the case that that's all that government school is these days, is memorization of things.
yeah,
The
but then it's completely knocked out by uh Google.
yes,
Like it kind of loses its memorization, like it your memory then gets kind of untrained really fast. So not only do you forget how to remember things after through school after school, but you also haven't learned how to do anything else.
that's true.
So you
Yeah,
basically just destroyed everything you've been doing for like, 20 years or something like that.
yeah, and I know. Yeah, exactly. Yep,
Yeah.
and I
So
know.
what are you
Go ahead,
saying?
Connor.
No,
Oh,
you go.
not nothing.
Okay. So the first episode of the year was my episode. Is called "The Future of the Latin Mass" with Peter Suarez. Uh, I don't. I mean, I can't tell you exactly what happened on that episode, but it was one of. It's still pretty early, I would say. In my in my interviewing, I guess, career, as well as not to mention I sort of this was kind of the beginning of me saying, okay, I'm going to do more of this interviewing. Like the other times were just kind of opportunities that I thought were kind of, oh, I'd like to do this. Like I'd like to talk to these people purely. This one was like, okay, I like talking to this guy. This would be an interesting topic, and you know, like especially like again, this guy isn't like a big YouTuber or anything like that. He's just a man that I know who is very smart and very good at talking, and that kind of inspired me to just be like, hey, do you want to do this? And the Suarez family has now been on 3 episodes, 2 on homeschooling. I think there are some people that want to see a third episode on homeschooling, um, which you were homeschooled, right?
I was homeschooled. I did listen to one of the episodes with them. The Suarez is on homeschooling, but yes, I was homeschooled third grade up through the university. So very, and my wife was as well. I think she was first or second grade up through the university. So yes, very familiar with homeschooling.
So maybe the next time to spice it up, we'll have you on as well, uh, to if that works out. Uh, but uh, but yeah, so I don't. It's kind of hard to do. I don't know. I guess there's probably more to talk about in homeschooling, but I don't know if I know enough about homeschooling to get sort of into that, into more of that, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah, and I think I mean you were you homeschooled, Connor?
no,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of yeah, I mean, so I mean, certainly I can speak from experience in starting to homeschool our own children. That helps to have some of that, experience as the student and then as the teacher. So it's definitely a interesting perspective. But yeah, whenever you want to have me on, you can have the experts on, and then you can just have the guy that just kind of hangs around in the back, and you can throw
What are you talking
questions
about?
too.
You're not an expert?
I mean, I'm an expert student. I think the Suarez sound like they are like experts on the teaching side of things. So
Well,
I'm getting into that.
aren't you homeschooling your kids?
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, my oldest is 7, so we're
Oh,
just
okay.
getting into it. So it's not.
So here's the link with I'm putting in the link in the chat for the future of the Latin Mass episode if any of you want to check that out in the future. I'm gonna do that kind of as we go. I'm just gonna put the 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 links in the chat so people can find the episode easily. But yeah, what were you saying? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to ask you. So I know you probably don't remember. all the conversation in that episode, but based on kind of where we're at in 2022 now, coming to a close, what would you say now on the other side of 2022 that the future of the Latin Mass is from your perspective?
That's a good question. There's so much like craziness going on at the moment, I would say. Like I did not see the Father Pavone thing coming, which is not a Latin mass thing, but it's worse in some sense. Like it's
Mm,
more dangerous for the Latin mass to have someone like Father Pavone being laicized. It's such a dramatic shift that in some ways I can't see. Like it's hard to tell. Like, is this a fluke? I mean, Father Pavone says it was a long time coming, and I actually think I don't know, maybe I'm optimistic about this, but I almost think I think the Pope might bring him back. Because it seems to me if you get in the room with the Holy Father, you can get him to see your side, if that makes sense.
mm,
Like, and that's the next step. That's the only step left is Father Pavone would need to get the Pope's to talk with the Pope in person, to ask him to reinstate him. Which my understanding is he has praised his work previously, so
mm.
I and he's met the Pope before, so I could see it happening. It wouldn't be shocking because sometimes it seems like the Pope's people, like advisors, people he has working for him, seem to be sort of guiding him through things. But then once he actually gets to the point where he's sitting in front of flesh, once he's sitting in front of a human being, it's a completely different story almost.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just getting in front of him, right? I mean, I think that the Pope has time for certain people, right, and time and not time for other people. I mean, just looking at Cardinal Zen or Cardinal Burke or
Yeah.
whoever. So hopefully in this case, yeah, if that were to come to pass, that maybe there could be some type of a meeting because, like you said, that's kind of it's at that point last resort, right? Because it said, "Oh, can't be appealed because the Holy Father is the one who did it."
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, the only person who could reinstate him is the Holy Father. So hopefully that works out. But yeah, it's just totally interesting situation, and I think that the most frustrating part for me, to be quite honest, and I don't know enough to say whether or not Father Pavone has maybe done some things that. I mean, probably not always good. I mean, I'm not talking about his career in general, for
Sure.
the unborn. That's fantastic. Um, but yeah, I think in light of some of the other things going on in the church, it seems very selective to me. Kind
Yeah.
of his prosecution. So that's the thing that's really unsettling. But you're right. I think the other unsettling part when you talk about the Latin Mass and kind of bringing it back, so I don't go on a whole Father Pavone
Hmm.
tangent here,
Yeah.
is what could this really mean? Like, does this have any implications for if you don't follow the right things in Traditionis Custodes or some other document that there might be harsh measures and maybe they'll make an example of someone else. And I know with Father Pavone, this is a long time coming, so hopefully this is a rare exception and not something that is going to be normalized. I mean, at least for
No.
something that relative to the punishment doesn't really seem to fit. I will say
Exactly,
that.
and that's what
Yeah.
Father Murray said as well. But really, so how that affects the Latin Mass, what I think is that bishops that allow the Latin Mass will continue, for the most part, to be quiet. They'll be silent. That will be just I mean, we don't really have to. I don't think we should talk about our bishop exactly in
Right.
like by name, but I would say our bishop is one of the silent ones who allows the Latin Mass and may be sympathetic, even though kind of surprises me that he is sympathetic. If he is sympathetic, he might
I am
just
too.
also not want to rock the boat, which I understand as well. But he, so I think this is a greater sign that a lot more bishops will just be silent. Like we're not going to have that many bishops coming out like Bishop Strickland. Like they're just like it will. This is going to keep more bishops silent for longer until there's a new papacy. That will be probably the mentality because basically everyone's going to do, or the majority, not everyone. Some people are going to be loud no matter what because they can't help themselves in some ways, or they just think that this is their job, this is the hill to die on. People have different people have different thought processes regarding how they're handling things. So I think there are going to be people that stand up and are continued to be silenced or continued to be um, sort of sent away, which we know a lot of priests that have already been dealt with that way. I don't. I think it will be interesting if Father Pavone gets excommunicated. I think that will send a worse sign for everyone else. But if he doesn't, or even if he gets reinstated, this might just be a fluke. That could be it. It could end up being just kind of a fluke incident that sort of, I guess, kind of, if enough people continue to be outraged or frustrated or show their discontent with his situation, I think that might show. I think that might push people to back off from doing these types of things, or at least doing them more quietly than outright laicizing someone. That's the thing. Like this was a pretty drastic. There was no suspension. This went straight to laicization. That's kind of that's kind of dramatic. Like, and that's
Yes.
weird to me because if you want people to if you don't want people to get up in arms about something, you shouldn't do it dramatically.
Right.
Like
Yes.
this in some weird back room, who knows? Pope Francis might be uh saying, oh, we're going to laicize him because it will create a greater focus on the pro-life movement. Like, what I mean? Like there could be a back room. I don't necessarily believe this. It's kind of like that meme. It's Joe Biden's on the phone with Pope Francis. He's working. Joe Biden's working out because he's secretly not senile, and he's telling the Holy Father that the Supreme Court is doing the job that we wanted them to do. That Joe Biden's just there to act secretly, move move a good cause forward, kind of thing. Maybe that's what's happening. I doubt it, but I'd like to think that that'd be kind of cool, and that that maybe that Pope Francis is using everything like like a chessboard, kind of moving things like that, like playing his like we're all pawns. Most of us are pawns. There are some bishops. um, I don't know who the knights are, but that sort of thing. So maybe is the I don't know who the king is. I guess Christ. Maybe Christ is the king because he can't move very many spaces. Um, the Queen's Holy Mother Church, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, there's a lot of possible metaphors, or that we could use for this. But the whole point is that I think people will be more silent. But I think this is just continuing the polarization of dioceses. There'll be more traditional dioceses. There'll be more liberal ones, and maybe that will just kind of in some ways continue the downfall of a lot of the liberal ones. They'll just the money's going to dry up and that sort of thing. So who knows? That's kind of what I'm thinking, but I don't think there's any. I think the Latin Mass is too strong at the moment, and social media is too powerful at the moment for the Latin Mass to die.
Agreed. Yeah, it's not going to die. It's just a question of, is there going to be another shoe to drop? There's always rumors, so who knows? But I heard recently there were a few other bishops that just started doing some restrictions just in the United States, and just out of the blue, there started who was previous, like in La Crosse, Wisconsin. There's a diocese in Missouri. I know that there's some others that are going on right now that are new, just starting restrictions. So it's like, I don't know. So there's rumors there like Tradiciones Custodes Part 2 coming out. And speaking of your example with Father Pavone and, his case, I think that we'll see if version 2.0 of Tradiciones Custodes comes out and, people start disobeying, then what happens? So, but I agree. Yeah, the long term, I mean, it's not ever going to die. It just is really going to depend on, especially this part of this papacy, and whenever it ends up finishing up, uh, you know, how bad is it really going to get? But it's not ever going to go away.
Yeah. There's definitely a double standard prepping for heaven. It's that whole Jesuit stuff. I mean, Jesuits and their tricks. Um, that's But anyway,
Yeah,
so the next episode was Charles Coulomb. I think that was the third episode I had, or I guess fourth technically. Fourth episode I did with Charles Coulomb, and that was about the Papal Zouaves. Did you listen to that one?
I did listen to that one. Yes.
Do,
Connor's putting me on the spot tonight, everyone. He's making sure. Is Trevor a true blue fan of plot lines? And have you watched every single episode? Yeah, I have. I did watch that one. It was really great. Short synopsis, I thought, of his book. He covered some of the highlights of the Papal Zouaves, their story, which if anyone has not, and I'm looking at the book now. It's called The Pope's Legion by Charles
Mhm.
Coulomb, and I'd highly recommend getting it. Yeah, and reading through. I'm partway through the book right now, and as per the other books I've read, Charles Coulomb, it's fantastic. He gives a really brief overview of the troops, how they came together, which is such a unique story, I think, where you have this whole army forming from all these different parts of, at least what was formerly Christendom, even the United States, and
I
all
think
these
it's still.
different
I
areas
think in some sense, that's still Christendom,
at
because
that time. Yeah.
just in the sense that like the Pope can call an army. Like that
Yes.
that's very much a symbol that Christendom may not be united, may not be as visible, sort of, but it's still there, in sort of on in the with the people. It's still there with the people. It may not be there with the leaders, but it's there with the people.
Yes, agreed. Yes, and I think it was, let's just say, much stronger back then too,
Oh, yeah.
with the people, and just even thinking about something like that occurring now, which was several thousand troops, dioceses, parishes funding volunteer troops to go over and give their lives for the Pope, in a war that really seemed, even at the beginning, to be a fool's errand. That they did it anyway, for the Pope, and that they were able to hang on for about 10 years time, from 1860 to 1869. That was very impressive. So yeah, I each of the individual stories as well is fascinating. I think you and Charles may have covered some of the individual stories, but because it's so unique how each person ended up being there, it wasn't like they were conscripted or anything. This wasn't like a conventional army, so it's absolutely fascinating. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to finish the book too.
Also, just the hard thing about that book is it's so okay. It's really hard to remember names like that. Like a lot of the soldiers, their names are really hard to remember. I think because a lot of them are French and stuff like that. Like, and they're just from all over, so it's really hard to remember the names. And that was probably one of the hardest episodes to do, I think. I don't think I think I probably could do it better, now. But I that was a very hard episode to do. I think I was very I was kind of I was very stressed going into that episode because and I think we got a little off track later in the episode. But that was a good one, but it was one of those ones that like there are certain episodes where like I get like cloudy in my head. Like I'm just like I'm like looking at the end of the tunnel. I'm just trying to persevere to to sort of as best as I can, because it's a lot of information and a lot for me
Oh
to
yeah.
remember. And I mean, sometimes I'm reading a book so I can then interview, and I don't have that much time to put it all to memory.
Yeah. And I can certainly appreciate that. That's something I always think of for you or for other people that have all these interviews all the time on podcasts. Is I don't know how you do it, like because like the prep time involved with reading something, and it's not like the Zouave story is not straightforward. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
so much history, just understanding what is the situation in Italy and post-revolutionary Europe, and how all these different individual troops found their way to the Papal States, how the army was formed, these battles. I mean, so it's not like I don't know, battle in World War II or something like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I've heard of that battle or whatever, so I have a frame of reference. It's not like, well, we're talking about the landing at D-Day. We're talking about Normandy, and you're like, oh, okay, like I kind of know what that is already. So great, I can do a podcast on it. But when you're talking about something like the Zouaves, it's like, yeah, if I don't read about it and really understand what's going on, it's going to be kind of hard to host a podcast about it.
Also, I need Charles to put these books on Audible or something. Like, if I could listen to them, maybe it would be easier. But that's the thing is,
Yeah.
the thing about the Papal Zouaves is no one talks about them. There's no like, it'd be easier if there was like a history channel that just told the story, and then okay, and then I can sort of, it's easier to remember something when you when you read the book and then you watch a video on it, then you're getting it twice but in two different formats,
Yes.
and that's
And
much easier.
it seems like that their memory was, well, first of all, I will have a shout out to at Papal Zouave US, who runs the account on Twitter, who does a great job of
It,
putting out updates for the
has he ever done a
Zouaves.
podcast?
He is not, but you could reach out to him.
Yeah.
I know who he is. I won't say his name. I know he wants some anonymity, so you'd see if you can have him on the podcast. But he might not come on the podcast as the the
Well, he could.
handle
Oh, well, he could do it also without like without
video.
showing video.
Yeah, no, he's very very well read.
Okay.
He's yeah, so he'd be a great candidate to have on the show. But you're right, it's just in general, it's one of those topics that I think even in the church is not is not popular anymore. I know Charles talked a little bit about that in his book, like, or even on the podcast that you had, I think, which was after, especially after the accord was signed between Pius the 11th and Mussolini, that
Yeah.
it just fell out of favor talking about them. And even now, when we view the idea of the Pope as also the king of his area or the sovereign, and not just of a little tiny postage stamp of a few acres in Italy,
Mhm.
but actually like a sizable part of what is now modern day Italy, was the Papal States, and the Pope was ruling it. I think that a lot of Catholics, that makes them queasy because they're also not that familiar or supportive. Well, they're not that supportive of the idea of monarchy anyway, as it is. So already they're queasy, and just to even think of, oh well, there was these forces that fought for the Pope to retain his sovereignty as a monarch. I think that already is kind of one of those things like, uh, it maybe turns some people off unless they really start to get into it and maybe understand a bit more about why monarchy necessarily isn't a bad thing. Because I think in these United States, it's one of those things we're all brainwashed into, is monarchy is this horrible thing. So
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
Well, it's also liberal Catholics won't go for it because they don't believe in anything really.
yeah.
And then
That's true.
conservative Catholics don't really like the Pope right now. So I can't it's hard to see them um really getting on board either. And really, in some sense, the traditional Catholics are the only ones that would say, "Yeah, let's do that again." And in some ways, it's funny because it's like, "Oh, well, don't we have trouble with the Pope sometimes?" Yeah, that's true, but it's almost, we're in some ways faithful to even into our detriment. Even to even we need to be faithful in some ways extra. We need that's more prayers for the Pope, that sort of thing. That's
Yes.
there's more for us to do for the Holy Father, and our devotion to him is is it's always important, but it's even more important now.
Absolutely, it's more important than ever. And I will tell you this prediction: if Pope Francis were to call another crusade to reinstitute the papal states, I guarantee you, all those traditionalists that have a hard time with them will be jumping right on board.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say, if just if the Pope was attacked, like in some physical way, I don't think, um, I don't think it'd be the liberal Catholics protecting him.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Even
So,
if they favored him.
yeah. Well, also, liberals don't really protect their own anyways. They usually cut and run. They throw the people that are they throw the weaklings to the dogs, and then they get behind whoever's the strongest.
Yes.
So that that's kind of how it works. But anyway, so the next episode is my first Chronicles of Narnia episode with Joseph Pierce. Uh, that one was interesting because we talked a lot about how movies have really messed up the imagination of my generation, especially.
Have you read all the Chronicles of Narnia? The
Yes.
book? Okay. I have
Speaking of
not.
that, the third one will be coming out Thursday. Third episode of the Narnia series with Joseph Pierce.
Oh, fantastic.
Yup.
I have to give it a list.
Yeah,
Have yeah, a listen, sorry.
yeah, we did it this morning, or not this morning. We did it at like noon. We recorded it, so that was a lot of fun.
Well, I know you said that television and movies kind of can rot our brains, especially when it comes to some of these great works of fiction. Yeah, I've watched the Chronicles of Narnia, but it's because I went to go see it in the theater, even back in the day. Although I should actually spend some time to read the books.
You haven't read the books?
I've not read the books.
Oh,
No, not for
come on.
Chronicles of Narnia.
The I would say some of the best ones weren't turned into movies, anyways.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And this one actually, the episode. Well, so this one was the first episode, which wasn't. You must not have. Wait, did you watch this episode? Because if you didn't, it's a book that hasn't been made into a movie.
Okay, I did not watch the episode on the
Yeah,
Chronicles of Narnia.
it was.
No.
So we were in chronological order. The movies have been in published order.
Okay.
So Lewis wrote, I think it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then went back with 2 of them, and then ended the series with the seventh book, which was which took place after, right after, or sort of after the fourth one. But Narnia is very strange because it doesn't follow the same protagonists all the time. It's very much different characters pretty much each book. There's only
Oh, okay.
two. There's only two books where it's the pretty much the exact same protagonists. So it's very much of it's a different kind of series. I think it's at least definitely something that you wouldn't see today. Everything you would see today is basically like if there's a series, you're going to follow the same characters from beginning to end.
Yes.
So it's very different. I think you'd enjoy it. Also, why don't you read it to your kids?
You know what? I maybe should do that.
Uh-huh. Have they seen the movies?
They have not seen the movies yet.
Good.
No.
Don't let them see the movies until you read the books. They're not long. They're meant for
Well,
children. This is the way you can also read them.
well, you know what? That was kind of I did I did read The Lord of the Rings while they were coming out. So back in the day, I read those and went to the movies. Um, but yeah, it wasn't really the case with the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, the crazy thing is I had read The Hobbit. So I read The Hobbit not just a few years ago actually, and I hadn't seen any of the Lord of the Rings movies or the Hobbit movies, but at that point, I did not have any interest in them when they were coming out. I always saw the Gollum in the trailers and stuff like that, and that made me not want to watch it when I was
Oh.
younger. I was like, that's disgusting. Yeah, yeah. We'll eventually get to Tolkien, maybe. I mean, we in the series on Narnia, I think we touch on Tolkien just because Lewis and Tolkien were so close friends. But we'll probably get there eventually. We're gonna go through all the Narnia books first. Uh, Joseph and I want to do that primarily, and then we'll probably get into something else. But we also did, back in the day, a Brideshead revisited episode. That was pretty good. That was pretty awesome. That was the first interview I did with him. Was a Brideshead interview. That book's really fascinating and one that I need to read multiple times. Also, a hard interview. It was my first with Joseph Pierce, so it was a hard interview to be like, I think I did okay, but it was pressure. It was a lot of pressure. It's pressure just when these people say yes to you, and then it's extra pressure when it comes time to actually do it. To go into it.
Don't mess it up.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to mess it up. You don't want to make yourself look a fool. But yeah, Brideshead's good. Prepping for Heaven. It's really interesting. It's very much classic. Like I don't know. Have you ever read or not read? Have you ever watched Downton Abbey? Prepping for Heaven.
I have watched Downton Abbey.
You have. Okay.
Oh yeah, when you've got a wife, you're gonna be forced to
Hey,
watch Downton Abbey.
Downton
So,
Abbey's great.
I mean, okay, I I don't know if that would be the first thing I'd reach for. It wasn't bad. I did not think it was bad. And if I'm ever in the UK again for work, I would probably make a trip out just to go see it because it's relatively close to London.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was really good. So the actual series,
Yeah.
the TV
Well,
series.
uh, I mean, as TV goes, I think it's pretty good, especially
Yeah.
modern TV.
Yeah, I thought that they kept the modern leftist and woke storylines relatively out of it for the most part. I mean, some of it crept in, but I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. But yeah, so that's a um, yeah. What was I saying? So next we have the reign of Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette with Elena Maria Vidal. She is a very interesting guest to have on. She's a lot of fun. She's a talker. I would say her and Charles Colomb are just like the most like the sort of uh most intense conversationalists, I guess. Like they just they can go on. It was very helpful to have them as early guests in some ways, because if I didn't have anything to say almost, they could just take it and run with it at that point. So that was pretty helpful. Did you see that one?
I did not, but I need to go now that you, especially now that you said that she's also an intense conversationalist, because I could, if she's anything like Charles, like I could listen to Charles all day long. He's got such interesting stories nonstop, like you said. So that sounds fascinating in and of itself.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that's another one that I reposted that doesn't have video, and I haven't been able to do one where she has video because she just doesn't have a setup for that.
Okay.
So it's just in the next episode I did with her, it's just my video and her voice and that sort of thing. But yeah, she's very interesting. It was just I read a book on Louis XVI by Bernard Fayet, prepping for that episode, and I got that book. I got it from the library, but it was recommended by Charles in one of his either one of his Tumblr House episodes, or it was in the back of a book or something like that, or on a website.
Huh. I've not read that book, although I do feel a lot of sympathy for Louis the 16th for sure.
Oh yeah. Okay. So there's a part of that book. This is this is nonfiction, and this is a history book. I don't think many people get very emotional reading history books, but there's a scene in it, and I mean that like, oh, that's the most emotion I've ever had reading a a a nonfiction book. It's crazy. Just some of the stuff that Louis XVI went through as a kid. There's just a part where it's like that it hit. He basically watched his brother die. Uh,
Oh,
it was terrible, and he was in the room the entire time, basically. Um, it's insane. But in some ways very beautiful too. Like he you know it's a big difference with COVID, where everyone dies alone.
yes.
That's such a dramatic difference. It's like I'm reading about like the basically two heirs of the throne. One of them is dying of a disease that is pretty much, definitely uh contagious, and the other one is just stays with him the entire time in his bedroom. uh and I think definitely catches it but survives afterwards. But the point is that, like, I can't imagine how terrible it would have been for his brother if he had been completely alone too. That'd be worse.
Yes.
I mean, you
Uh,
could argue that the parents shouldn't have done that, but also think about what it would have been like to be just completely alone. So
yeah, absolutely.
I don't think anyone would want to be in that situation. I mean, no one would want to be in that situation, period. But that's not part. We don't get to decide that. So, um, so the next episode of the year was a strange one, I think, for maybe most people. It was I compared George R. R. Martin, Andrew Clavin, and J.R.R. Tolkien and their writing styles. Um, Very different. I think they're all three different. I think they each have their own belief systems. They both are sort of come from different styles of thinking, but I also think they're all very good writers. Very quality. I mean, Tolkien's amazing. Clavin is pretty good too. I think and then Martin is very good at what he does. and I think even I think Jason and I are going to do an episode on this, and I think I would say that Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones, the TV show, doesn't do or sort of takes the Martin's writing and sort of makes it porn. Like it's
Yeah.
not like the books aren't really that way. Um, I mean, you can, and in some ways, it's because writing or in books, you can imagine what you want, and you can imagine, and you can not imagine what you don't want. So, you know, you can sort of make it what you want in some ways. But yeah, I mean, obviously, George R. R. Martin is not writing for children or or young adults and stuff like that. But it's like he definitely understands what I would say a world without Christ, a world
Mm,
either pre-Christ. It's sort of it's a medieval world without Christ. If you can imagine a medieval world without Christ, that is Game of Thrones. That is A Song of Ice and Fire.
mm.
And Andrew Clavin's world is kind of sort of a classical liberals medieval world, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Like if a classical liberal were to design a medieval world and what the enemies of that world would look like.
Okay.
And that's in his series Another Kingdom, which you can get on Audible, and that's narrated by Michael Knowles.
Yeah, I remember hearing Michael say that he actually narrated
Yeah.
Clavin's work.
Yeah, it's very interesting. One day, either through Margot or my own miraculous means, or I don't know, maybe you'll meet Michael Knowles or something. You seem to meet everyone, so one day maybe one of us will meet Michael Knowles and we can interview him on, or I can interview him on the subject, or Andrew Clavin. I'd love to talk to Andrew Clavin. I think he and I disagree on a lot of things, but I think his mind is most akin to my own in sort of the creative area.
Yes.
Like Michael Knowles isn't as creative as Clavin is. And I think, I mean, it's pretty obvious because if you're creating a world in your head versus, sort of an actor who's sort of playing a role or, voicing these characters, they're both important, jobs, but you also wouldn't have the actor if you didn't have the writer.
Right.
But you can have the writer without the actor. So just think about that, I guess.
Well, they're both more creative than I am. So there's that.
What Tridentine Brewing? Come on, it's very creative.
Oh, it's creative. It's creative in its own right. Yeah, for sure. But
Exactly. I don't know what you're saying. It's it's kind of disconnected to either of them in their creativities, but yeah. So I don't know. And then this one was this next one was the biggest episode I think of the year. I could be wrong. Let me double check. I think it is. What's the most popular one of this year? Most popular. Yeah, this is the most popular episode. This one is where I had Charles Colomb and Apostolic Majesty on to discuss what was the up and coming Rings of Power TV show. That one was a really fun one. I'd never talked to Apostolic Majesty before. He seems like a very fantastic guy, a very interesting one.
and
But
I
yeah,
think I did listen to that one. And yeah, it's I did watch the Rings. So I never read the Silmarillion. So full
How
disclosure,
and you watched the Rings of Power?
yeah, I did.
You're really failing me at this point.
I gave in and decided to because I know that, so I know, you know, you can get to this, you know, you've done other reviews of episodes, and I was like, I'll watch it just because.
Wait, so I convinced you to do it?
No, I don't think that you. Okay, so I did it because I was like, well, I'm already listening to the review, I might as well just
Oh.
watch the episode. So I just decided to do it. And yeah, I mean, it's my take on it is that, yeah, eh, the storyline is kind of garbage. You know, I could already tell it was garbage, but I mean, at least the scenery is beautiful, and I was like, okay, there's a little bit. It reminds me a little bit of the Lord of the Rings of movies, a tiny bit. I was like, okay, just take it for what it's worth. This is nothing like what Tolkien wrote. Sorry. So I'll just look at it from that perspective. It's just another show, and yeah. So, but I would. It wasn't great. I will say that.
Prepping for Heaven's son is doing better than you are, Trevor. Um,
Sounds like
Prepping
it.
for Heaven. Has your son ever listened to the podcast? Just curious. But yeah, so that's. Hmm. Well, I mean, now I guess if you did you watch all of the episodes or did you just watch some of them?
I did. I have a really bad habit. You know, my wife gets upset with me about this, where we'll sit down and watch like a movie or something, and I'll just fall asleep.
Oh,
So
okay.
I, not because I don't care, but it's just
You're
like
too
it's like
young for
later.
that,
Oh man, sometimes I feel like I'm really old.
apparently.
And so I fell asleep through some of them. I'll admit there was some I fell asleep, but yeah, I did watch. I did watch most of it. So, but I will say this: I did right after I read the Lord of the Rings, and I was like in a really good mood about, you know, and I thought that the books were way better than the movies. You know, the same thing for The Hobbit. Like I felt like it told so much more of the story than what was shown in the movies. Although I will say the movies got me motivated to read the books because I had like kind of a visual in my head of what the world would look like. At least it helped in that way. And then I was looked at the Silmarillion, and I just started reading like the first few pages, and I was like, this thing is like, it's like going over genealogy and stuff. It was like reading parts of the Old Testament, and I was like, I don't know if I could just sit here and read this whole enormous book of the Silmarillion. And so that's what kind of stopped me right there. I was like, that's it. I'm done. So obviously I didn't have much perseverance there. So, you know, bad on me. And then
Well,
I
I would
just
say read a
watched the episode.
chapter at a time.
Yes, exactly. I think that that's a good thing to do that I should have done. And obviously I didn't. So
Yeah. It's definitely like the Bible. It's the Bible of Lord of the Rings.
Bible in a year, Silmarillion in a year. Connor, you can put that out there, and you know,
Well, I don't have
you
the
know, there's
rights
my
to that.
Father Mike Schmitz. Yeah,
Yeah, no. is he had he hadn't watched it, but uh yep. So yeah, he probably like any number of the episodes that I've talked about. Oh, he is your son old or young? I prepping for heaven. How like ballpark is he kid or is he an adult? He sounds like he's more an adult. That but anyways, so yeah, that was just a fun one, fun episode for me. Apostolic Majesty is one of my favorite podcasters. Uh, there's like there's like two podcasters. Oh, he's in his 40s. Okay. Yeah. Um but anyways, so Apostolic Majesty is one of my favorite podcasters. I don't know. Have you ever listened to any of him?
I've listened to him a couple times when you've had him on, but I've not listened to him outside of that context. So,
But
but I mean, he does seem like a pretty cool guy.
yeah, he covers a lot of history. Uh so and you like history, so I think you'd enjoy that.
Yeah.
He's almost what I in like I don't think I can be that. I don't think I can do that type of podcast, that type of history. At least I could probably do something like that if I was like teaching a class or something, like, in front of a bunch of students, but I don't know if I could do that good of a job. Or maybe I just don't have time right now. I don't have time to do what I would need to do um in that. Uh but yeah, so that's
Well,
maybe one day I'll get to that point.
yeah. I think you do well at that too, Connor.
Thanks.
And
He's just very smart. He's British, so like,
it's the accent that makes it all, it
oh
just
yeah.
adds at a level of like just like, oh wow, I think you know what you're talking about just
I
based
mean
on your accent.
my favorite like podcasters that I just came across by myself, because like I like a lot of the podcasters that I've met and interacted with, and by no means I'm what I but like in the field that I love listening to, because like I'm a history guy. Just that's my thing. Is like that's history and fiction and that sort of thing. It's because fantasy is basically where history meets fiction in some sense together. That kind of thing. Um,
Mac is on. All right.
Welcome, Mac. Mac of all trads.
Mac
That's
of all
great.
trads, Mac of the ages. All right.
Yeah. So, interesting enough, tomorrow I'll be doing an episode with Peter from Vendée Radio. So we'll be so I'm basically doing two straight British accent episodes in a row. So there you guys go. You get all the IQ points, all the IQ levels in go. Though it's a big contrast because Joseph Pierce has a Cockney accent.
Oh.
I think, at least I think that's Cockney. Um,
Well, I'm very used to British accents because all of my team at my job works in the UK.
your
So
job.
yeah, Tridentine Brewing is just a side fun project right now. I mean, hopefully go commercial, but for my what's bringing home the bacon, that job, I work with all primarily British people, and so I get the wave of different British accents. So that's fun.
Yep. Okay, so I think that's. I think we were also. I think Charles AM and I were pretty right about how the show was going to turn out. I think it's actually kind of worse than that, just quality, but you know, I'm not surprised at least. Um, Sorry, what did I do? So let me switch the thing date. Okay, yeah, okay, it's back. Next episode is. Oh, we're getting close to yours. The next two are beer related episodes. Uh, this next episode is Dr. Stout, which was pretty fun. It was prep for my episode with you. I would say that was great. John and I interviewed Dr. Stout. Uh, he's I would say he's more trad than he sort of talks about, if that makes sense.
More than he lets on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I,
I,
I I think
yeah.
so, based on what he said. Or I mean, I read the book too,
Mm-hmm.
so I read the book in preparing just for podcasts in general about the brewery, just to get a good Catholic foundation on brewing, and I totally recommend the beer option to anyone who's listening. Dr. Stout. Amazing book. And yeah, just it's very typical of things that we take for granted, like our healthcare system, the education system, like all provided by the Catholic Church. Same thing with beer. Like beer would not be what you think of beer today without the Catholic Church, without the monks. It's basically all them. What you think that uh, beer would basically be a porridge. I mean, that's what the Egyptians had um, without the monks. So it's a great book. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, it is a great book, and listen to that episode to learn more, sort of to see, if you want to buy the book, it's a good listening to the podcast is a good way of discerning whether or not it's the book for you.
Yes.
But yeah, and then the most exciting podcast of them all, the
Connor has to
episode.
say that because I'm sitting right here. So,
No, couldn't be true. That's ridiculous. It's the Tridentine Brewing episode. Woohoo!
Oh, yeah.
That was a lot of fun. First time talking to you. I mean, so that was a lot of fun. Before it was just over text. So, what was your first impression of that? What were you thinking?
Just about the podcast.
Yeah, about the episode. What were you expecting? That type of thing. Like, did you think it like? I guess did it go as you expected or what?
Yeah, I think it went as I expected. It was nice. It was a nice change of pace from a prior podcast I had done. I won't say the name of it, but
Think
you
I
were
know.
you were you were very well researched. You actually listened to, I think the prior podcast. You had a really nice set of questions for us, so you had actually thought it all out. Um, the first pod one of the first podcasts I did, I had to basically it was like a presentation. Like I had to go in there, I had to present everything.
Mm,
Uh, whereas with you, it was much more conversational. You had a lot of really intelligent questions to ask about the brewery, beer in general. Certainly, I think that the prior interview probably helped out a bit with that and your thought process for the questions. But yeah, I had a really good time with that.
yeah. Awesome. But yeah, and it was great, meeting you, and that I'd like to think that our interactions over the last year have been sort of just setting the stage for all sorts of things. Like there's just a lot of things, and we might talk about it a little bit as we get further in, but
Sure.
just how your relationship with the podcast has been you know some very important and very much appreciated. So that
Absolutely, Connor.
so check out that episode if you guys haven't. It's eh, it's nowhere near how many views it should get. It's uh there are a lot of episodes I feel like that uh should really get more attention, I think. And this is one of them. And hopefully, since I'm doing this, hopefully people that have been watching me as of late might, decide to, it'd be great if you guys would watch some of the old ones, especially some of the ones with guests and stuff like that, because then, we could spread it around and that sort of thing. Also, please, if you haven't liked, share, and subscribe, that would be great. Help out the channel. I was hoping to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of December. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I'll settle for 700 if you guys wouldn't mind helping that out. Tell your friends. Come on, make accounts. I don't know, like do what you can, please.
Just create bot accounts.
Help
Connor is
me
begging you. Anything.
help me beat avoiding Babylon to 1,000. My advertisement really is: do you want Anthony to win?
That's right. He was online today again, trashing "It's a Wonderful Life" and "A Christmas Story." So
and
really
always
unacceptable.
trashing women.
That's right. Just the inner misogynist coming out.
Inner.
Oh, that's right. Just wear it right in your sleeve. You know.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was the episode with you was fantastic. I had a lot of fun. I think John had a lot of fun too. Plus we got to drink beer. That was a lot of fun too.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, it's not stopping me now. I'm on a podcast and I'm drinking beer. So
Yeah, I should have had one.
yeah.
I wasn't thinking. Or I thought actually I thought about that earlier, but then when the time comes I'm just like I get distracted by the um I get distracted by the intense like prep for, or the intense like, oh, this is happening. I don't know if that will ever go away. I hope one day it does. I hope one day like the getting ready for a podcast is like, just like, it's like drinking coffee, for in the morning. People, it'll be hopefully one day will just be regular, something
You
totally
know what?
regular.
To me, that means at least if you have a little bit of butterflies, it means that you care. So it's not a bad thing.
Yes, I do care a lot. I hope that comes through with this with my work and stuff like that.
It,
Uh,
it comes through. And by the way, as I see in the comments, Mac said that be happy to cancel the Avoiding Babylon subscription to help you out. So thank you, Mac, for
Mac, I appreciate the offer, but you don't have to do that. I
that.
don't I don't want to win under false pretenses. I don't want anyone to cheat. Unless you want to make other accounts, then it's okay. That's okay, but don't remove your subscription from them. Uh, they're popular now. They're with meaning of Catholic. They really have the biggest cheat in some ways in that manner.
Connor, you got to get your own Meaning Catholic show, and those numbers are going to skyrocket.
Hey, I was on Meaning of Catholic once, just as a guest, talking about the Knights of the Cross. Have you seen? I mean, we'll get to that, but just have you seen the show, the first episode of that show?
I have not. No.
You need to. Just,
Okay.
I mean, it's the obligation of every Catholic. It's free. Watch it. Like it's only gotten like maybe 15,000 views right now. Like it's a really decent show so far, and not to mention it's the possibility of becoming something like Mass of the Ages, but for entertainment.
Oh,
Sort of it's
nice.
because it's a fundraised TV show. It'd be nice if it was more popular than The Chosen. Like that would be nice, because the Chosen is just it's a Protestant creation, but this is a Catholic one. So let's and it's about the Crusades. So the more Crusade stuff, the better, I would say.
Yes.
Um, so the next one up is my first episode with Dr. John Bergsma. This one was very surprising to me that I was able to get this interview, and I've had two now interviews with Dr. Bergsma, and this one was, I think it was the first time I've ever interviewed somebody about sort of the Bible, about sort of theological stuff, and that threw me off a little bit. So I wouldn't say it was my best work, but it's definitely interesting. Dr. Bergsma is a brilliant thinker, and it's wonderful to see him think. To hear what he has to say. It's wonderful.
Yeah, he's a brilliant mind, and I believed I've listened to him with you. I think I believe I listened to that particular podcast, Connor. But I had also listened to him on other places like Meaning of Catholic, and yeah, he's a pretty smart guy. So yeah, highly recommend him.
Yeah. I didn't know he's been on Meaning of Catholic. I haven't seen that one.
I think so. I think it was a few months back that he was on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or maybe it was one Peter five. I don't know. I know that Timothy Flanders was interviewing him.
Yeah, he does. He does both, so it's hard.
It's all confusing.
Well, there was one I swear recently that it was that it said he was talking about 1 Peter 5, but it was released on Meaning of Catholic.
Oh. Someone pushed the wrong button, uploaded to the wrong account.
And like, you know how I'm in a group chat with like a bunch of the other podcasters, you know, like Mark, Anthony, and that kind of that group. I said like, do you guys think any like this is at the wrong podcast? And none of them either responded or other was like, I don't know, I haven't seen it. I'm like, I just want you to look, and they're just like,
Yeah.
so yeah, that that's an interesting one um to listen to. And then the next one is the second one with Elena Maria Vidal on Henrietta Maria. I think eventually we'll do another episode on that as well. A very interesting. Elena Maria Vidal's, you know, as I said, is very great guest to have, and she writes historical fiction, which is a lot of fun. I read her first book on Henrietta Maria. It's going to be a trilogy, and you know it's going to go into the English Civil War, so that's a lot of fun.
No, that
So
should be fascinating.
yeah, so you know these books, I would say, just aren't. You know, it's really frustrating because these books should have a much bigger audience, I think, than they do. And I think that's just because nobody's out there advertising them as much. And I'm trying my best, and you know, I don't have as big of a platform, you know, to get them farther. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I, you know, want the show to grow. It's not really just for, you know, myself or for the you know, for the channel or anything, but I also want people to have a greater knowledge of other entertainment options, or you know, sort of, you know how the Daily Wire is trying to make sort of, I guess, the new Hollywood in Nashville. It'd be good
Yes.
to have more competing um sort of Hollywoods, I guess, competing production companies and that sort of thing, in whether it be in books, movies, or even plays or something like that. Like there's just all these different areas where there's plenty of entertainment, but most of it's garbage.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's what I know, and I don't know how much it's taken off, but I know the Henry brothers, Lorenzo and David,
Oh
th-
yeah.
they have something that's kind of similar, somewhat.
True. Yeah, and I know they're. It looks like they're gonna do a Blessed Charles movie of some sort.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I saw that earlier this year, and yeah, it'd be great to get one of them on and see if what they can give you some answers. So I've not seen any updates and know that their site hasn't been updated all that much. So I hope the project is still going strong and they're able to deliver something, because that would be a phenomenal film,
Well,
especially for
they're group.
Catholics.
I know a lot of people don't want to watch Netflix and that sort of thing, but they had a animated series for kids recently, and it's pretty good. I've watched a little bit of it just because I had an interest in their work, and I would love to interview one of them. I think David would be a great interview, specifically just because I grew up I grew up watching Disney, so I have a much longer appreciation of his work and that sort of thing. So he would be probably one of the coolest interviews to do. It's funny because I just Bug Hall and I just connected over Twitter, and then he got banned from Twitter.
I was gonna say he's gone now. Yeah.
I know. So I'm like, oh, that didn't work out very well. So, I mean, there's probably a way to contact him, but in the future, but like he's been working with David Henry on on stuff as well. So in the last couple of years, so
Yeah.
a
For,
lot of Catholic people are working together. That's one of the things that I've noticed a lot more, and even in Hollywood, or I guess it wouldn't be Hollywood that much anymore. I think it's breaking up and stuff like that. But there's a lot just Catholics working with Catholics. Also, another group is Kevin James is really just working with. I don't know if Adam. I don't think Adam Sandler's a Catholic. He might be, but him and Adam Sandler do a lot of movies together, like Adam Sandler's production company, and they seem to be on a similar page at least,
mm,
with how to make movies, or at least So it's interesting. I mean, they were both comedians, so it makes sense that they would be working together and that sort of thing. Well, let's switch a little bit over to history. Back to history. The next episode I want to talk about is my Ryan Grant episode. Oh, Sandler is Jewish. Okay. Uh, anyways, but and it's nice to know that Kevin James is having a good influence. He's
ecumenical dialogue in films.
well, I don't think there's anything specifically Jewish about a lot of Adam Sandler's movies, anyways.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Um, but anyway, so the next stop is Ryan Grant and the Jesuits. Uh, that one is one of the more popular episodes that I've released, and it's still uh, another one like that's just like some sort of hard for me to follow sometimes. Um,
Ryan is like this insane wealth of knowledge, like just the encyclopedic knowledge. Like, yeah, I think you could just like tell Ryan, like, "Hey, Ryan, tell me this about church history," and like go. I can give
yeah.
you 3 hours, and you have no
Mhm.
problem like filling it all up.
Oh,
So yeah, it's just always amazing whenever I listen to Ryan on whatever the topic. But I think like that era that you're talking about, like with the Jesuits and kind of like right around the Council of Trent. I mean, but I know that that's just because Ryan's done so much with Saint Robert Bellarmine
hmm,
as well with translation and stuff that I typically think of Ryan in that era just because he's as like a historian for that era because he just has so much knowledge. But yeah, I mean, always absolutely amazing the things that Ryan can remember
yeah.
in any podcast I've listened to him.
He is pretty impressive. So kudos to him.
Oh,
Uh,
Haley's in.
yep, Haley's here. Hi Haley. Um, but anyways, so that's just a lot of fun. A very fun episode. I think a lot of my history episodes is interesting. I don't know. Did you see my poll that I did about what uh people like best from my content and stuff?
I
Do you
did
remember
see
that?
that. Yes.
Yeah. But on YouTube and Twitter were sort of opposites in responses. On
Okay.
Twitter, it was mostly people had put general Catholic culture. But on YouTube, most people put history.
Huh. Okay.
And about the same percentage on both platforms put literature and entertainment. So around like 20% of my audience likes, at least of that voted, like the entertainment ones, and I guess it's sort of hard to tell what percentage um like the history versus um the general Catholic knowledge, or culture, I should say. Which I don't know. I would say some of them mix some of those, some of those topics
Yeah.
sort of go across different I guess they're not all like each episode isn't confined to any specific one. I mean, some are more than others, but that sort of thing. Anyways, the next episode is my next episode with Charles Coulombe on mentorship. That I thought that was interesting. It wasn't the most listened to of all the Charles episodes, but I think it's a interesting conversation to have with him because he seems to be in some ways a mentor to a lot of people. He's sort of
Yes.
the
I think Connor froze up a little bit.
sort of everyone's uncle. Sorry about that, guys. Uh, everyone's favorite Catholic uncle. Just like Eric Sammons is the father, I think, of Catholic Twitter. Uh, I don't know
the,
whoever called him that, but
the dad of Catholic Twitter,
or
yeah.
yeah, the dad of Catholic Twitter. Uh, I don't know, but the blizzard's
The
coming.
blizzards. We're like a couple days early for the blizzards. I think that's gonna
Yeah,
hit like on Thursday into Friday.
just my internet sometimes goes like that. Unfortunate.
But
Um,
to your point, Connor, I think that, and I did listen to that episode too with Charles. Yeah, I could absolutely see Charles as like a great mentor to people. Just how he comes across, and I guess just the interest that he shows in people, and wanting them to succeed, and putting in the time to spend with people as well. So yeah, and yeah, again with Charles, I could sit down and listen to Charles all day long. So I think having him as a friend and a mentor would be fantastic. Stories alone, he has a story for everything. So
he does, yeah. And both of us have met him in person, so that's he's quite a character. He's no different in person, really. Yeah, just almost great, larger than larger than life, but even greater
exactly, yeah,
in reality. If you think he's larger in life, or, over video, he's even more larger than life in person. The next episode uh, I'm gonna put out there is my episode, or John and I interviewed Father Chase Hilgenbrink. Did you watch that one?
it's not ringing a bell. Although if you bring up the subject, maybe I have.
It was just about the priesthood as well
Oh,
as spiritual fatherhood and stuff like that.
was he from? Yeah, I think I have. Um,
Well, if you haven't, you better watch it.
yeah, but I think was he from either from the Diocese of Peoria or
Yeah.
just around Champaign? Okay, yeah, I did watch that one. Yeah,
Okay. Well, if anybody else hasn't, they need to. It's a shorter one, so it's under 30 minutes, I think. So it's quick, but he's pretty awesome. He was a soccer superstar in South America, and he became a priest, and he's incredibly charismatic in the low C meaning. And just he's a spiritual or sorry, vocations director, so he's bringing in more men into the priesthood and that sort of thing, and he's perfect for that job. So it makes everyone else sad, because he has less time for everyone else, but he's doing a very important job, and just he's full of spirit, and um, just he's fantastic. He's incredibly orthodox. Uh, there's you could go on and on to talk about how great Father Chase Hilgenbrink is. He's just wonderful, and I think that comes across in the video.
yeah, it did for me. Yeah, no, he's very magnetic, personality, and I could see why they put him in the role that he is right
Hmm.
now for the diocese, and trying to attract the new young talent to because we need it. So yeah, hopefully he remains successful in that, because the Diocese of Peoria is just south of me. So you know, need to
Yep.
make sure we're all staffed, as best we can be.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And then the next episode is about integralism. John and I interviewed Father is it um Father Thomas Crean OP. One of my favorite tweets from him is it's not a sinful it's not sinful to be a tractor. I
Well,
think I think that's what it was. Because someone was talking about a priest was talking about why he can't. He was complaining that he couldn't bless gay marriages,
oh.
and Father Crean responded, "It's because like he was like saying, why can I bless an object but not people?" And he was like, "Because it's not the sin to be a tractor."
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's an interesting Dominican. I almost think he's more fiery on Twitter than he is over interview, which is kind of funny. He seems very quiet in some ways, or calm, over or in person probably, or over video, which is kind of funny given how he's can be pretty spicy on Twitter.
That
So
is true, and it's always funny when you see the people in real life, and I've witnessed this like a few times, like people in real life being different than Twitter, or whatever social media, and
like
like the
you,
what they come across. Oh, really?
I don't think you're as fiery as you are on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I
You
go ahead, sorry, Connor.
you are a sass master. That's what I like.
I try to give the people what they want, Connor, which is fiery takes.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what people want.
they don't want the beer; they want me getting getting on Twitter and saying stuff. But yeah, no, Father Crean as well. Yeah, I agree. He seems relatively laid back on video, because I've listened to him before on videos as well on integralism, and yeah, he seems, like you said, laid back relative to the his Twitter posts.
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely. I feel like he's definitely different. But yeah, that was a fun one. That was a fun one, especially for me because of the day I recorded that episode. That was a very fun day for me. Not just that, but more stuff. Just a very special day. It was the feast of Saint George, which is a good day. Um, but yeah, and then the next one is one where the rumor of the end of Roe v. Wade um, sort of came to the leaked decision. Uh, I interviewed Dante Bucci, who spoke at the March for Life Chicago. He was the
Mm.
keynote speaker of the last March for Life Chicago. We talked about, the future or of the pro-life movement, and just whether or not Roe v. Wade was going to be truly overturned. Obviously, it was overturned, but yeah, but we didn't know that at the time. We were just talking about how what it meant, and whether or not it was really going to be overturned. Because I don't think we've ever seen a leaked opinion like that come out.
Yeah, I've never seen that either, and it's funny that no one's ever gotten to the bottom of it, in the entire federal government. I'm sure everyone knows who it is, but they don't
Oh yeah,
care to release it.
everyone in power knows pretty much
Oh,
everything we don't.
yeah, I mean, the fact that the NSA, and other agencies know everything that you're doing on your phone at all times, and the fact that no one could track down who the leaker was of an opinion at the U.S. Supreme Court, um, Yeah, I'm not buying that at all. Like, I think that they knew right away. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised, to be honest. I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought that, wow. Um, honestly, I thought that Roberts might be might be behind it. Just maybe not he was a leaker or anything like that, but uh, just because it might, sway Kavanaugh one way or the other, especially.
Yeah, if
Um,
well, but if yeah, if the decision is already out there,
right.
the sort of either people have to jump on board or risk damaging the institution even more.
Well, and I think that's a great point that you made, because I think a lot of people jumped on and were prognosticating about this is going to be it. Now that the leak is out there, people are going to jump ship, people meaning like Kavanaugh or Amy Coney Barrett or someone else.
Yeah, it probably
And
had the
I thought,
opposite.
yeah, and I thought, yeah, it's going to have the opposite effect, because if anything, to your point, now you're going to damage the legitimacy of this institution, because now people know that as long as we leak opinions and put pressure on people, that
They're
they're
not
just
going to
going to
do it
cave.
anymore. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
going
And I
to
mean,
change their opinion.
good on
Yeah,
them for persevering even despite death penalty, not death penalty, death threats
death
on
threats.
their life.
Yeah.
Especially with Kavanaugh, like no one talks, no one in the media talks about that. The fact that, you had a crazy guy planning something for Kavanaugh. So it's
Well,
insane.
Trevor, people don't like when, or people voted that they don't really like when we talk politics on this channel. So we should probably move
I'll
on.
just save it
Uh,
all for Twitter. Don't worry,
oh,
Connor.
I know it will be on Twitter. The next episode I want to talk about is the Mass of the Ages episode, where I interviewed Cameron O'Hearn, uh, which a lot of that even, a lot of that episode was also about like the future of the Mass of the Ages. So a lot of it still, holds some value. It's not just if you haven't watched Mass of the Ages, or it's not like a review of it either. So it's it's something more, something more info about what the future might hold for the Mass of the Ages crew and episode 3 and stuff like that. So I would encourage anyone to check out. I've been putting all of the links as I've gone through them, uh, in the chat, so you guys can just click away.
Did he happen to mention rebranding at all?
No, that wasn't a part of it.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
early put it out there. Maybe we could trace that word back to your episode, Connor. I think
Yeah, it was actually all because of my
that's
episode.
right.
I
He
I
floated
mean,
it out for the first time on your episode, and
I'm
then
willing to talk to them about rebranding, and I have no real problem with it. I understand both sides about the why people got up in arms about the rebranding. Um, I really do think it was one of those things that maybe they should have just kept to themselves and just did it, because I don't think anyone has any problem with them actually doing it. I think that people have a problem with them saying they're doing it.
I think so. Yeah, I agree fully. I think, well, first of all, I think people just love to be outraged anyway on social media. So when they
Well,
put the word out there,
they need
what
something to fight about.
we need something. Oh, let's fight about a word. Just a word. To
Yeah,
your
it
point,
did.
like it didn't matter about what they're doing, because I think people were on board with what they're doing.
Yeah,
And so just to go crazy about a word, I agree. I think with you though, that was the word the right way? Was it the right thing to put the word on it like that? Probably not, just because people were going to come to that conclusion that, oh, this means that, you know, you're trying to say bad things about everyone that came before you, and you're just trying to change the mass. Like people had that comment. You're trying to change the mass. I'm like, what? So
I,
it's
don't get it.
just nutty.
Yeah, let's not give this any more credence. It's I think it's a silly conversation in some sense. Not what we're having, but just the whole situation is just
Oh yeah.
silly.
But I
Um,
agree that that episode was good. I did listen to it, and it was nice to hear Cameron's take about the future, and nice to see what's going on with them right now as they kind of roll some of those plans out, and um beyond episode 3, The Mask of the Ages, and kind of what they're doing now. So it's exciting work.
Yeah. Well, the next episode is still on the same topic. My John and my review of The Mask of the Ages episode 2. Uh, it's kind of cool. Father Reed, or Dom Reed, was it? Alquin Reed,
Oh yeah.
one of the interviewed guests or members of the episode actually watched the review and liked my review, so that was kind of cool. It, I was like, oh, okay, it's a bit scary, and I still felt incredibly small, especially at this point. Was it May? I think it was May.
It was May.
I think I still had like 200 subscribers, maybe 230 something subscribers. So just, to have somebody like that watch it and appreciate it is just pretty cool, to say the least. And this was, before you put me in touch with the Avoiding Babylon crew, so which is coming up. That's in this timeline, the Avoiding Babylon group. And then the next episode was my episode on biblical kingship with Dr. John Bergsma. I think that one's a really fun one. I think I did much better with that interview of Dr. Bergsma because I felt like I was much more strict on a topic and much more straightforward. It was just a lot of fun. Did you get a chance to watch that one?
I'm not 100% sure that I had a chance to watch that one, Connor.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
It's on kingship. Come on.
Yeah.
That seems like...
Actually, no, wait a second. Now that you're saying that about the kingship,
What else did I
it's
say? I said
ringing a
biblical
bell.
kingship.
It's ringing a bell now. Yes.
Just the fact that I'd never thought of like Saint Joseph as basically being a king.
Yes, I definitely watched it. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
that was I also turned that into a clip, so you might have just listened to that.
I listened to the full episode, Connor.
Okay.
No,
Sure.
don't tell me I didn't just listen to a minute clip.
You
I listened to the full thing.
You were the one who wasn't sure at the right away.
Yeah,
so.
It just takes a little bit more, we talked about the beginning of the episode and you get old and your just brain melts and stuff. I mean,
You're not
that's what helped.
old.
I'm in my 30s now, so
You're not old.
I'm not a young pup like you. I'm not in my 20s anymore. So
Fine. I'm gonna go through just a couple more, just like sort of faster. Just stop me if there's anything on a particular episode that you found very interesting or want to point out. I did an episode with Gideon Lazar, the Byzantine SCOTUS, on homeschooling as well as the schism with the Orthodox. Then was the homeschool episode for the first part of the homeschool episode with the Suarezes. Then I interviewed Barbara Nicolosi about her journey from the convent to Hollywood and her work writing in Hollywood and helping make movies and that sort of thing.
And that was really fascinating, by the way. Just kind of like behind the scenes.
Yeah, she was a very interesting interview. Another one of those that I'm like, this is kind of amazing that I get to do this, like that I get to talk to her about it, and she's just very, very chill and that sort of thing. So that's one of the things I love about a lot of these people that I've interviewed. They're just very relaxed and they're very very calm and very normal, I guess you could say, to say the least. Then when Roe was finally overturned, Charles and I, or what did I say? Oh, forgot about the Dr. K episode. I interviewed Dr. K about his new books on hyperpapalism, which was a lot of fun. I think I surprised some of those guys. Some of the really smart sort of writers and stuff like that. Some of my questions I think surprised them because some of them I don't think expect the people to actually read read the work before they um, interview them about it. So I just think that's kind of fascinating. But I love surprising them. I love surprising those guys with
It's a good
with
good interview too. So I appreciate that with Dr. K. And yeah, and you
yeah.
do it like we were talking about earlier. You ask the good questions, and I can
Aw,
attest to it because you had a whole host of questions for me that I thought were very well thought out. So
aw, shucks. Thanks.
you're not just paying me, everyone. Just so everyone knows,
That's
Connor
true.
wasn't
I
paying
don't.
me to say anything.
Yeah, you've given me more than anything than I could give you. So, but yeah. So then Charles on the overturning of Roe v. Wade, as well as talking more about his history and stuff like that. Then the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe episode with Joseph Pierce. Then Ryan Grant on for St. Thomas More and St. John Fisher. Then this was kind of uh, a very different episode from what I had with Dr. Stout previously. We talked about catechesis. He's a uh, expert on catechesis, and he runs a diocese's ca- uh, catechesis basically for schools, for Catholic schools. So he's very knowledgeable in that. Then I talked to the leader of the Leonine Institute about the Jubilee debt relief program, which is another episode that I think is criminally underrated. Uh, it's just really cool learning about how we can help our fellow Catholics who have money troubles and stuff like that, and help teach them how to use their money properly. And then began my series on different regions of the Catholic Church. We so uh, I had Gavin Ashenden on to talk about the church in England. Then I talked with Bishop Strickland about just his take on the general United States as well as his local diocese. That I feel like was one of the big surprises for me this year as well. Um, so did you listen to that one?
I believe so. The one with Bishop Strickland, yes.
Yeah. That one's a lot of fun again. Then the Irish Church with Robert Nugent of De Crevy, determined to be Catholic. So that was fun. I interviewed Jake uh, about the MCU. Then the second episode on homeschooling with the Suarez's. Charles Part Two. Who is Charles Part Two? More of his history. Then I interviewed um, and these are all my videos, not my lives. I'll go briefly into those as well. Then Apostolic Majesty and I talked about Charles V, King of Spain, Holy Roman Emperor. Then Tea with Tolkien and I did an episode on the Elves of Middle Earth. Peter from Vendée Radio and I did an episode on the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. It's always good to have more British voices there. Then I interviewed Enoch. Then this was the this came along for the what is it the Texas stuff. I interviewed Charles, uh, and then I interviewed the abbot of Our Lady of Clear Creek, and then some more of my live episodes. I've done a number on movies, more movies. I did one on classical education with Paleocrat, one on the Midwest with a bunch of podcasters, uh, and then one on Texas. I've done a bunch of Rings of Power episodes. I did one on the election. I did one with Taylor Marshall on the Amazon show as well, the final episode, and just kind of reviewing the season. Did you get a chance to listen to that one?
I did, yes.
That one wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you. We had a fun Friday night down in Texas where you met Dr. Marshall as well. You met Taylor down there as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so this is the first time I met him too. Was just down there like right before the Blessed Carl Symposium in mid-October. And yeah, it was a great time after dinner, just getting to hang out and, talk with Dr. Marshall, Eric Sammons, Adrian Fonseca, um, a whole host of other people. The Twitter mutuals were there. So it's nice. It's nice meeting these people in real life too. I feel because
Yeah.
and you because you get a feeling. There's a certain feeling you get on social media from people, and it's easy to have a certain perception of them, but it's different when you get to meet them in person. And I could say for real, all the people that I met are really nice, genuine people. I
Down to
mean, I know
earth.
like down to earth. I mean, even like someone like Dr. Marshall, I know he gets a lot of criticism, um, and whatnot. But he's definitely a genuine person. Like I
Yeah.
think he gets painted as like this like evil all in
Well,
just
everything's his
for the
fault,
money.
right?
Yeah, everything is his fault. Yeah, Tradiciones Casados is his fault. And he's just in it for the money, and he's a grifter. And it's like, I did not get that impression from him at all. Like just meeting him and getting to, spend several hours with him.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic.
Let's just say I don't think he would have been on my podcast if he was a grifter. Is that,
Agreed.
you know what I mean? Like there was no benefit to him to be on my podcast. Um so it's just kind of also I would say none of them are different than you would expect, I guess. All of those guys that we met down there, what you see is what you get, and that's pretty impressive.
Because you think of some of these people that might be a bit bigger, and you're like, okay, there has to be something, and maybe it's a facade or something. And it's like, yeah, with all of them, I could definitely say it's not. Like even like Eric, if you were to turn into Crisis Point podcast and you listen to Eric, I mean, that's same Eric was there that I met, at the symposium and that Friday night,
Un-
same person.
Unless
So
there's a clone walking around.
yeah. Right, yeah.
They
The
cloned
real
Eric
Eric is out
Sammons.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, they're just very kind guys. It's just um very awesome to meet all of them. But, you know, this has just been an incredible year. Looking back, going through all of those episodes, really. I mean, I didn't finish going through all of them, but I think, you know, I went through mostly the old ones because I think everyone can go look back at the recent ones or or have probably already watched the recent ones and stuff like that. But I think it was best to highlight some of the oldies, some of the old ones that people probably started following this podcast a while back, or not, sorry, recently, and haven't had the time or haven't thought about going back to listen to some of the old ones. So just I think that was probably the best thing to highlight. Um, what would you like to see in the future year of plot lines?
Well, in that I'll give you the answer that I put in the poll, that you put out there, which is, I think, general Catholic culture. But I think that category spans a lot of what you're already doing, right? So, because that bleeds into history, that bleeds into could bleed into politics, could bleed into literature and entertainment. So I think kind of this what's nice about plot lines is it's not pegged as this is the podcast where we come to complain about the church, complain about Pope Francis, or this is the podcast where we all get to talk about red versus blue team and for politics or something like that. Um, and honestly, I don't know how many. I mean, maybe there are other podcasts that talk about, from a Catholic standpoint, literature and entertainment. But I think that that's also very unique about kind of how you position this podcast and where it's at. So I would say keep on doing what you're doing. It's nice to get a good mix of things in there. That's not all just one-sided, one type of thing. What's the next scandal that's out there? What's the next thing that we can all get our blood pressure up and, you know, talk
Yeah.
talk nasty about the Pope or something? And so I like where you're at.
Yeah, I don't really get very excited or energetic about, what's the next scandal that doesn't, I'll occasionally, I mean, I'll probably listen to somebody talk about it, but it's not really it's definitely not my alley. I don't feel competent in that area.
I agree, and that I mean, even if I had a podcast, I would be reticent to talk about some of those things because, yeah, if I don't have the training anyway, then I don't want to like say something that is going to lead somebody astray or whatever. But um, yeah, it's good as well. Like just sometimes there's so many others that are out there that are talking about the negative and negative, negative that it's good to you occupy a different space, which is there's a lot more to talk about than just the some of the negative things that are going on in society. It's good to look at the positive and building up the culture. It doesn't mean completely ignoring some of the negative. I mean, that's fine to
Yeah.
talk about it. But yeah, I think I like where you're at. So I'm not
Thank
being very helpful, am I? But
I don't know.
I think it's good. I think that the general Catholic culture is, I think, a good fit for this particular podcast, even though
Any
it's called
anybody
Plotlines.
anybody you well, plot to me, pretty much everything has a plot. So that's kind of the thing about the show is that like I specifically named it that way so I could basically talk about anything I like. It
You're a
just basically
genius, Connor.
well, it's actually my brother. He's a genius. He told me, right, name your podcast something so that depending on what you end up really going talking about throughout your podcast history, that it can all sort of make sense based on the name. And I didn't want to call it the Connor McHugh show. Like I just didn't want it. Like that could have been perfect. I could talk about whatever I wanted, but I don't know. It just felt more no one was going to watch it right away because it was called the Connor McHugh show. So,
Yeah, and I think your brother had a good idea there. Name it something so that it can apply to a wide host of things. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it'd be the same thing if I named it the Trevor Alcorn Show. If I stood up a podcast, ain't no one listening to that.
yeah. Well, maybe one day.
Maybe one day,
Yeah.
people care about beer. People know about the beer, but they don't know about Trevor, which is fine because it's not really what I'm doing this for, so that Trevor's name can get out there and Trevor can be glorified in some way. It's
Yeah,
whatever. I
we're
don't
not
care
here to
about that.
glorify Trevor.
That's right. We're here to brew beer for God's glory.
Yes.
Yes.
All for the glory of God. But yeah, so but any specific like guests, any guests you'd want to see on Plotline specifically?
Oh man. I'd like to. Well, let me just say this while I'm thinking about this. I kick it all over to the people who are still in the chat, whether it's Haley or Mac or others. Put in.
I think we just have Mac right now.
Okay,
Um
so put it on
it could be
Mac
somebody else.
too. Um, yeah, I would say honestly, anyone that you can get from like the Catholic sphere who's like influential. Um, I think like we were talking at the beginning of the show, like I'm always amazed at some of the guests that you're able to pull down. Like just because like for example, like
Mel
we
Gibson.
well yeah, that
Max
would be
says Mel
great. Oh
Gibson.
wow, talk about plot lines. Like get someone like Mel on, and talk about some of the movies he's directed. So I love
Yeah,
that idea. You
that'd be
get
crazy.
Jim Caviezel, Mel. Um,
I would love to get more of the actors and some of the and more writers on to
yeah,
discuss type of things. I wish there was more fiction writers, more Catholic fiction writers.
you
But
Connor.
eventually, I take forever. I'm very slow. I'm very divided. My attention on things are just very divided. I am thinking about or sort of trying to figure out if maybe maybe writing some articles and seeing if I can get them published certain places. Uh, I think that might be one thing that I might do in the meantime between a possible, possibly releasing a book or something like that.
Oh,
Father
that'd be
Dave
great.
Nix, that's a good suggestion.
I think we can hook you up with Father Nix.
Yeah,
I
no,
think we can do that.
uh, uh, yeah, he's a very real possibility. He'd be a great guest. And then anybody else? Trevor, come on, give me some more names.
Some more
Name
names.
names.
Name names. Oh boy. Um, yeah, I was gonna say. I think if you got Knowles, Matt Walsh on, and a lot of Daily Wire people up here. I mean, I think of those as like when you talk about like Catholic. I mean, hey, Walsh is a best-selling children's author now too. You're talking about plot
That's
lines.
true.
Knowles has written a book with no words, so he'd be a great person to talk
He also
to
wrote a book with words.
with words. Yes.
Ooh,
Mark
Mark
Wahlberg.
Wahlberg.
That would
Yeah.
be interesting. I think Kevin James would be interesting. I would say, based on like what we had talked about previously too.
Plus, I like a
Um,
lot of his movies and his work and stuff like that.
yeah, I
So
think Patricia Heaton would be a good one too. I know she's a
she's an
pretty
old
strong cast.
Illinois, former Illinoisan, or maybe she still lives here. I don't know.
I don't. I think I get the impression she's in California, but
I guess so, but I don't know.
if I'm gonna live in blue hell, I'd much rather be in California. So
Blue hell.
yeah,
Mac,
Mac.
you want to be on?
There we go, Mac.
You could be on, Mac, if you wanted to.
That's right. Come
We're
on,
not that
come on.
far away from each other, I assume.
Well, Max said that saw me at Mass of the Ages. So, and sorry, Mac, if I saw you and I don't, didn't recognize you or whatever. So,
Wow,
but
but yeah, no, I mean, I think Mac goes to Kansas, so
okay, wild
at
stomping
least
grounds.
I've seen him post pictures and stuff. So, uh, so there's always a possibility of seeing probably either of us at Kansas. Um, not probably regularly at all, but there's a possibility. You never know.
Yeah, can always happen.
Yeah, that was funny. I mean, this was just funny. At one of after a mass I was at, uh, somebody stopped me afterwards and was like, "You do plot lines?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." Like, like, what is going on? I can't believe someone's like. It's weird. It's just weird meeting people that like have seen the show and that type of thing. Great. I appreciate people coming up and saying hi. Um, I'm not one of those people who, um, doesn't want to be, doesn't want people to say hi to him. If you see me around, though I don't really know how to respond exactly. That it's a little it caught me off guard. So I don't know how to do that best. But I'm not trying to be rude. If you catch me, just you never know. It might be a bad day. You never know. But it's not you. It's probably me. Um, but yeah, no.
It is always fascinating though when it happens and people do recognize you. It's like one of those celebrity moments. You're like, what? You know who I
Yeah,
am? Um, I think you probably had that more than I have because typically what happens with me is people don't know me, which again is fine, but people know the brewery. So when I like introduce myself and I mention the brewery, people are like, oh yeah, oh of
Oh,
course I've heard about the brewery. I'm like, oh okay, yeah, I'm involved with the brewery. It's something my family does. Oh wow, okay, cool. Like I've heard about it. Everyone I know is talking about it, and so I'll get that when I talk with people. And this is like in trad pierces, not everywhere. Like if I went down the street in my town. And I just told people I'm with Tridentine, they'd be like, "What the heck is that?"
yeah.
So not everyone knows what it is, but when people know it, they know the brewery very well, but maybe not the people behind it, which again is totally fine. Not really the
Hmm.
purpose. So yeah,
Yeah.
but good. You're
Awesome.
a star, Connor. I
I
always knew
don't.
you were a star, and you're proving it right now.
I
People are just recognizing you out in the wild.
That
So
wasn't
there
the
you
point
go.
of that. Okay, to be fair, we went to an entire conference of traditional Catholics, and nobody knows me there. So like, it's not. There's no stardom right now at this point. If this was just a fluke, that was just like a random situation. But yeah, so yeah, so if I was famous, I'd be like Taylor Marshall, getting crowded around at the event. Not really crowded. Some people came up and talked to him, but nobody was doing that for me. I was crowding around other people. I was just trying to meet Bishop Schneider and that type of thing. So I yeah. Anyways, so I think that's a good place to leave it. I think it was a good year. Do you think it was a good year of plot lines?
Oh, I thought it was great your plot lines, Connor. I mean, just even hearing the list, like I don't even know what the number of podcasts that you just went through.
I think
But
like
holy
50 or 60, something like that.
yeah, it was a lot. I think anyone that could put out 50 or 60 podcasts, like with guests, not like, oh, I'm gonna do a monologue this whole time. Okay, I mean that's fine if you're really like a big podcast, you could do that. But the fact that vast majority of those were with people and not just any person, not just Trevor Elcorn, but like actually like big name people that
You're a
you would get
person.
on. I'm a person, yes, I'm a person, but I'm not like
What is this a Jake moment? You don't know what a person is?
hopefully it's not a Jake moment. But the fact that you've got again, quality people on all these podcasts, well known people that other people would like to sit down and spend their time on listening to. And
Hmm.
you had that for, the vast majority of your podcasts were like that, where you had really, really fascinating guests, big name people coming on. Um, I'd say it's a banner year for plot lines. Probably your best year yet. I'm sure you would agree on that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds like a good segue into 2023, where there's even better things to come for plot lines.
Though the year prior had my most popular episode.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, that was with Charles Colomb on his response to the to Traditionis Custodes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one that got a lot of attention. And I think if I had put more episodes out right away, it might have, caught fire a little more. But I was not prepared at that point to do so. So, but yeah. Anyways, so that I think that's a good place to leave it. Trevor, remind the people where to find you.
Yeah, you can find me on social media on Twitter at Tridentine Brew and on Instagram and Gab at Tridentine Brewing. You can also find us at www.tridentinebrewing.com. And so, yeah, follow us there. Yeah, looking for ourselves, looking forward to exciting things in 2023. So hopefully we can announce that soon. And by the way, I'm glad to hear as well, Mac watched 10 to 15 of your podcasts as well. So Mac's a
That's
super
great,
fan.
Mac. Yeah. And Mac and I always show up, or we've shown up a bunch of times watching the Eric Salmon's the Crisis Point podcast together. So it's always me saying hi and Max saying hi back, and it's always like that. Anyways, so thank you all for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Watch some of the episodes that I put out there. Hopefully you like them. And Mac, thanks for watching. Hope watch out for my episode with Joseph Pierce and Peter for the rest of the year. And then it's gonna be probably a slow January. People are very busy this month and can't really schedule podcasts really at the moment. So hopefully once the holidays are over, we can get back to scheduling some people. But there might be some of just me or some of our of our mutual friends that will be able to come on and stuff like that. Jason and I and Mark and I are probably going to do a podcast at some point. So look out for that probably in January. So thank you all for watching and have a blessed evening. Bye.